My name is Meachum. I'm the Director of Conservation Environmental Services. If any of you have a pen and a piece of paper, my telephone number is 619-409-5870. That's my direct phone number, not my secretary's. It rings right at my desk, 619-409-5870. And that's me. And that's what, a couple of months ago, Brendan Reed, one of my staff members, was here talking about the home upgrade carbon downgrade program, the idea of helping people do energy efficiency on their homes and potentially even renewable energy. Just wanted to point out, that's what I'd really rather be doing than doing power plants. You know, that's the fun part of my job. But when the lady was talking about overhead, I wanted to point out, when we put that application in for the block grant program, we were allowed 10% administrative overhead, and when I wrote the budget, we wrote it for 5%, and we told Councilman Ramirez is here, voted for that. He's the climate change subcommittee that actually helped us put the proposal together so that we could put as much money as possible into helping homeowners, not into administration. So even though that particular grant of 1.9 million allowed for 10%, in reference to the earlier speaker, I wanted to point out we only put in for 5. Next slide. So the reason why I'm here tonight is that Teresa asked about, kind of an update on the power plant situation. I think that Laura created a very compelling case earlier about why Chula Vista ought to be able to close down the South Bay power plant. But the California Independent System Operator, this quasi-federal agency that's part of the grid management system for the California's collaboration with the Western United States, says that we have this reliability thing, and if we're going to address it through additional power supply, that's one way to make it go away. So this is pursuing another alternative, and when the council voted to not do a new power plant on the Bayfront, and the port actually voted on the same night and said that we wouldn't rebuild the power plant, we took away that option from the Bayfront, and they directed me and the staff to look for options. So that's what I was going to talk to you about tonight as one alternative to South Bay, is trying to complement that process by looking for a way to replace it some way. So this is what council said originally. This goes all the way back to really 1998. They wanted to reduce energy infrastructure constraints on the Bayfront, reduce air and water quality impacts, and that's what we started off doing when we talked about this with Duke, the original leasee to the port, when the port acquired the property. They acquired it during the great deregulation of energy in California around 1998. You all know what happened to your bills when that went in place. So this is a kind of picture of the Bayfront development master plan project. And this area down here is all of the power plant property. It's roughly 135 acres. This is basically the power plant right here. 17.5 acres roughly is just the substation. But all of that land is constrained by the power plant as long as the power plant's in place. That gives you a little bit of a context. So the power plant, 130 acres. 17.5 for the substation. There's a transmission corridor, a big long swath of property that runs up the Bayfront where the transmission lines are. The city negotiated for undergrounding that with SDG&E, and they've already put the lines underground for the whole thing. And in December 2008, they were supposed to take down the towers that were north of J Street. There were some complications with that. A lot of it had to do with the existence of the power plant. And now we've come up with technical solutions. North of J, those power lines and those ugly lattice towers are supposed to come down by the end of this year. So you should start seeing work done in the late fall of this year, and those power lines north of J come down. Yes, sir.
Are they on the new power system, the underground lines yet?
Yes.
So the towers are just there and they're not doing anything?
The towers are there as sort of a backup to the South Bay power plant until a substation in National City and some other things happen. And when the Otay Mesa generating facility comes online, they feel that they have enough adequate supply to be able to risk taking down those lines, which provide some of the ability for South Bay dispatch in an emergency. So Laura's point, it validates Laura's point that when Otay comes on, suddenly there's this new secure source, so at least part of the reliability of South Bay is no longer as necessary because we're able to take down some of the extension cord that delivers that power.
Who owns Otime, Michael?
It's owned by a company called Calpine. They developed it. They're a large company that develops and operates power plants, and I believe in their lease agreement that there's a codicil there for SDG to buy it at the end of 10 years of operation.
They're a subdivision of SDG?
No, they're not. They're a private, separately held company. Actually, I think it's a stock company, but they are separate from SDG&E, but their agreement to build and operate that plant also included the provision, I believe, for them to sell to SDG&E at the end of 10 years. But they're separate. Laura already mentioned that the agreement ends November 2009. Technically, they were supposed to start the demolition at that point. If the RMR had been resolved, then it should have been, coming down by around the 28th of February. It takes a little longer than that, but that was kind of the target date. Decommissioning there, oh, it already says that. And allows the plant to continue on RMR. That's the third leg of the stool that we got to kind of saw off if we're going to get rid of that turkey. Excellent. Okay, so this is what your bayfront looks like today with transmission lines in that corridor with and without those power lines north of J, hopefully this fall. This is the substation. The substation will go away when the power plant goes away. The city already made an agreement. We used our capital, our relationship with SDG&E in the franchise agreement, leveraging your payment to SDG&E and their use of our right-of-way to have that substation removed at no cost to the city. The ratepayers are going to generally spread that cost out. It's about $50 to $80 million, but that is constraining 18 acres. That's what it looks like before and after. Excellent. So, in 2007, the council and port got together and unanimously said no power plant on the bayfront. They asked them to initiate steps to decommission the power plant. Port, moved forward on that issue as well. The council took that formal position. Here you see a picture of, oh, there's a picture missing. That part. Can you click above and see if that goes on there? Go up. Back. Click above the picture. There's actually a picture with the power plant. No, go back. Next one. No, keep going forward. I'm sorry.
It's at the beginning.
Yeah, right here. There's a picture of that J Street Park with the power plant that's not popping up for some reason, but
it's at the beginning.
Oh,
It was at the very first slide.
Okay. It's supposed to be next to each other. That's okay. Go to the next one. So, council's recommendations. We put this in a letter and we sent it to the port, and when they got a new director, we sent it to the new director. It came from the city manager and said, hey, look, our council said, don't do anything that's going to extend the life of the power plant. And these are, bullets that talk about that. All the things Laura talked about, maybe a few more, probably exactly the same ones. But the council's taken a formal position because remember, the port owns the property, they own the power plant, they hold the lease, they're in charge. And we said, if you really, at the dais, one of their port commissioners and chair said, we want to know what the city of Chula Vista wants. Let us know and we'll do that. So we made it very clear to them in a written letter, back in 2007, and we sent another letter in 2009. This actually came out of the Energy Subcommittee from Councilmember Ben Susan and Councilman Castaneda. They sent it to the full council and they voted on it unanimously and said, don't do anything that potentially extends that power plant past November 2009, February 28, 2010. Next slide. And that's a continuation of those issues. I'm going pretty quick, but if there's anything in there that jumps out at people that they want to know. The interesting one down here at the bottom is the kind of stuff I like to do. Ensure that the $2 million stimulus package for energy efficiency block grants is spent in a way that helps us most in getting rid of South Bay Power Plant. And kind of the way we do that is, as we invest that money in making homes more energy efficient, as Laura pointed out, that power plant just sits there in case of an emergency. If there's a high demand for energy, it turns on. And it tends to happen between May, I don't know if she said this, I apologize if I'm repeating it, but between May and October 1st. That's when it's the hottest in San Diego. That's when we have inversion layers. That's when any additional particulates you put in place are worse for people like me that have asthma or people that have COPD. The issue really there is that stuff is cumulative. I think if you went back to the chart that Laura showed, that one of the earlier speakers was right. Laura was right, but the real darkest area with the most concentration, the highest number underneath it, was between the 5 and the 805 and the 54. It encompassed that entire area. I don't think that's an accident. But because when you take the particulates and air emissions that we have from major freeways and you pile on top of that an old, inefficient power plant, that's just more than a person's lungs can handle. So, next slide.